Welcome guys, welcome to another live stream. This title of the video is Desi Pronunciation Perfection, and it's your ultimate guide for wanting to sort of think about your accent, thinking about the differences between the Indian and the British accent. I did a series on this like a couple of years ago. I think it's been 3 years ago, and a lot of people found it really useful. Not only for those who wanted to work on their British accent, but for various industries across the world. People wanted to understand how to understand their Indian colleagues, and this series was also useful to create inclusive environments where, by further understanding colleagues and people in your life, we can communicate better. So this is going to be a guide for understanding the Indian accent and the British accent, and understanding how you can sort of sound clearer when you're speaking to those in a workplace or even in a social setting. So lovely to have you all here in the live stream. Nicole, thank you for joining. We're going to go through, there's quite a lot to cover, which is why this series is going to be in 4 parts. So today we're going through the first part, part 1, and this series will be running for 4 weeks. So please join our live streams Wednesday at the same time, 2:30 p.m. London time. So yes, we're going to share the screen and we're going to start taking some notes. I'm going to give you an opportunity to start practicing as well along with me. We're going to go through some example sentences. I'm going to try and break it down into various subcategories. So the first subcategory that I would like to discuss is vowel sounds. So let's jot that down. What I mean by this is there are various vowel sounds between the Indian accent and the British accent that you should be aware of, and there's certain ways that we can pronounce the vowels, right? So if we take a look at this one, just give me a second. So I thought about the difference between these two words. So we've got so speakers with the Indian accent, when you're saying these two words, they might sound very similar, but in the British accent, they're different. So just spend a few moments now saying these two words out loud. How would you say them? Okay, so in the Indian accent, the first one is cut, but then the second one is also caught, right? So I caught the ball. So it sounds pretty similar. So caught and caught. If you're finding that the pronunciation is similar when you're saying these two words, I want to explain the differences in the British accent. So the first one is caught, and the second one is caught. And so feel free to elongate the second vowel sound. So let's just investigate caught for a second. So the second one here, it's caught. Or. So the sound here is or. So I'm not saying caught, I'm saying caught. Now I think it's easy to isolate these sounds and just say them, but I think the trick is when you're actually saying them in a sentence, is to make sure you slow down and really think about the vowel sounds, right? So if we take a look at a couple of example sentences. So I placed the baby in the cot. Now, cot is a British term. According to my research, it's not a term that people in North America use, so it is a British term. So a cot is a small bed where babies sleep. Then let's just keep it very simple. I caught the fast-moving ball. So let's just take a look at the two differences there. I'd like you to read these two sentences out loud. Okay, so let me read it in the Indian accent for both of them. So, I placed the baby in the cot. I placed the baby in the cot. Cot. Notice the T sound on the end of cot, right? And the O is quick. So I placed, A sound, A. I placed the baby, B. So play and B is the same sort of sound. So play, B. So I placed the baby on the cot, and then I got the fast moving ball. I got the fast moving ball. So if I want to switch that to the British accent, this would be I placed the baby in the cot, and the T is softer. It's not a heavy D sound. It's not a strong T. The T sound on the end is not strong. So you want to reduce the emphasis and the pressure that your tongue is placing on the top of your mouth. It's not cot, it's cot. Cot. T. So there's the T sound there. Also notice the A vowel sound, so it's play, A. Can you say that for me? A. A. I placed the baby in the cot. So notice baby turns to baby. Bay. Notice that, so that's quite a British sound there. Baby. I placed the baby in the cot. And then let's read this one in the British accent. I caught the fast moving ball. I caught it. So do you see how we're kind of lengthening the vowel sound here? So I caught the fast moving ball. I caught the fast moving ball. So do you see the differences between caught and caught? Okay, there's another similar one that I wanted to discuss, and that's pen versus pin. I got my pen. I got my pin. I got my pin, right? So that's how we would say it in the Indian accent. I got my pin. I got my pin, and I started writing. I got my pin, and I started writing. Got my pen, or pen, and then the thing is, what I'm trying to say is there's a stronger difference than you might think. Of course, there's a variety of Indian accents across North and South India, but my overall point is that there is a difference in the vowel sounds. So if I was looking at the word pen, it's an eh sound. Eh. Pen. Pen. And so we want to elongate the sound. Pen. I got my pen and I wrote down the sentence. Pen. I put the pin, I put the pin in my hair. Pin. Pen. Pin. I sound, like a quick I sound. Pin. I. And eh. I. And eh. So pen, pin. Okay, now I want to discuss the difference in these vowel sounds as well. So the classic one that people try to attempt to say is, "You're right, mate." So in the Indian accent, it'll be "You're right, mate," or "You're right, mate." Mat. I've even heard some Indians pronounce this as mat. So it's "You're right, mate." "You're right, mate." And so let's just investigate this sort of A sound here. So similar to baby, it's the A sound. So you literally want to say A. I like to think of this as kind of like an A. AY sound. So A. Can you say that for me? A. So this one would be you all right, mate? Mate. May. So let's just isolate these two letters here. So may. May. You all right, mate? Mate. And notice I'm kind of elongating that vowel sound there, mate. All right, so we've gone through the first one, which is vowel sounds. I also want to talk about, in this series, consonant sounds, nasalized sounds, word stress, intonation patterns, linking and blending. We've got like schwa sounds as well, pacing and rhythm. So there's lots of top tips to discuss throughout our series. Okay. The next thing I want to discuss is nasalized sounds. So let's just write that down. You might be thinking, what is a nasalized sound? What is that? You know when you feel like you have a cold and you can't really speak properly because your nose and your chest is all blocked and there's not enough airflow through your sinuses? Then you would sound nasal. You sound nasally. So if you pinch your nose, try this. So if I talk like this, right, I sound nasally because there's not enough airflow. I know it sounds silly, but it really helps to identify the difference in how it sounds. So airflow is very, very important. And there's an important point that I want to make. When you're sort of switching between the Indian accent and the British accent, there is a sort of reduced airflow that you might have noticed in your own voice when speaking in the Indian accent. It sounds nasally. I'd like to explain why. If we take a look at the A sound in man, I'm not saying this for all variations of the Indian accent. Let's take a look at this word. So when we've got man, you could say in the Indian accent, I spoke to the man. I spoke to the man. I spoke to the man. Oh, just noticed my screen is blocking it there, sorry. I spoke to the man. Or another one you could do is can. You can do it. You can do it. Now, notice the pronunciation of man. In the Indian accent, it will be man. It's like an air sound. And so I want you to practice getting lots of air through your lungs and saying ah, ah, quite loudly, ah. Try that for me, ah. So it'd be I spoke to the man, an, I spoke to the man. Man, I spoke to the man. In the Indian accent, it would be I spoke to the man. Spoke, notice the or sound, the or. Spoke. This would be spoke. I spoke to the man. And then this one would be you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. In the Indian accent, it would be you can do it. Can. Can. And the British accent would be you can do it. You can do it. Just checking out the comments on the live stream. Hi Kottayam, Kunjakan. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly there. So Kottayam Kunjakan. Please let me know if I've pronounced your name correctly there. Lovely to see you in the live stream. All right, so let's see. Just checking out my notes, see if I've got any more. Oh yeah, so the next one, let me give you an example one, and let's see if you can pronounce it in the two different accents. So how would you say this word? So I'll give you just a few moments. I'll give you maybe 20 seconds. Practice saying this in the British accent and the Indian accent, and then I will let you know how I would do it, and then you can compare your sounds to my sounds. Use this time to also practice the other sentences as well. And then we'll go through it in 15 seconds. By the way, I hope you use that time to actually say these words out loud. That's the whole point. That's why I disappeared, so that you don't feel self-conscious when practicing, right? You should be saying these out loud. So we've got the Indian accent, which is I noticed a bang, bang. I noticed a bang. The British accent is I noticed, noticed a bang. Ang, so so try that. I know it sounds silly, but you've got to try it. Bang, bang. I'm going to disappear one more time. I actually want you to try get a lot of airflow through your lungs. And please try that. Bang. Bang. Not bang. It's Open your mouth, literally open your mouth like really wide. Of course, when you're talking, you don't have to open it that wide, but just when you're practicing. So bang. Try that for me. Okay. All right. So hope you've practiced along there with those sentences. Guys, there's lots more you can practice at home. So before we move on to the next top tip, we've got this one, which is fan versus fan. We have, so you can feel free to research other A sounds and think about that as well. All right, so let's now think about the R sound, right? So when I mean R, I don't mean the letter A, I mean R. So let me just write that down for you. So top tip number 3. So we've got R sounds. So let me put down a few words for you. So we've got car, bar. And let's say okay. Right, let's just analyze these for a second. I'm going to read these ones out with the British accent, and then I'm going to switch to the Indian accent. So let's take a look. So we've got, actually, yeah, so I'm going to do it, yeah, in the British accent first, and then an Indian accent. So we have car, bar, roti, air, and robot. In the Indian accent, it will be pronounced car, bar, roti, air, robot. Do you see the difference there, right? So the R makes a huge difference. Now, the R, sometimes in some Indian accents, it is rolled R at the end, right? So even now when I'm talking in the Indian accent, the R is heavily emphasized on there. Now you can also see that my intonation is different in the Indian accent compared to the British accent, and I want to talk about the intonation in a different video. We'll talk about that in the next week's video. But today we're just going to finish off with R sound, and we're going to go through some sentence practices. Sorry, it is winter here, and my nose is a bit runny. Thank you. So let us analyze the words car, bar, roti, air, and robot. And I think the interesting thing I wanted to let you know is that the roti, the word roti, I actually with my friends pronounce this roti. In an Indian in an Indian restaurant or with my other friends from different nationalities, in front of them I also say roti, because I also think it's important to retain identity when speaking a different language. And I think roti is an Indian food, so why would we have to pronounce this differently, right? But I do want to, the purposes of this video is for educational differences, and I wanted to highlight that for you. So let us analyze roti. So my British friends say this as roti, roti, but Indians, we would pronounce that roti, roti, right? Roti. So it's the T sound, which is kind of like curled behind your tongue in your mouth. So your tongue curls. So roti. And then the R is heavy. It's like a rolled R. Roti. Same with air. Or even if you don't roll the R, it is air, as in we can still hear it. So in the British accent, it kind of ends in a softer sound. So air. Notice my tongue, it's still on the flat part of my mouth. It's still on the lower part. It's not touching anything. It's not my tongue. It's not touching the top of my mouth when I say air, or car. It just stops. My tongue doesn't actually move. So it's just car. I got in the car, right? I went to the bar. I ate a roti. That one does, because the R's at the start, so you do need to move your tongue a little bit. But if the R is at the end, you don't need to move your tongue. It's just a airflow out of your mouth. So car, bar, and then we have robot. R. It is not r. So I think with the R, when in the Indian accent, the tongue creates more pressure at the top of your mouth. But with the British accent R, there's not much pressure with your tongue. You have to let the air flow. So robot. There's a few questions coming up in the live stream. Whilst I'm taking a read, feel free to practice these sounds. V Godos 24 says hi. End Zone says hi as well. Thank you for joining our live stream. Suji says, hi, I'm here too. Did you learn English in Indian accent first and then change your accent with practice, or you learn it in British accent in the beginning? This is an interesting one. So in the household, I spoke Tamil. So Tamil was my first language in the household. I had a lot of Indian accent influence from my parents, but I did speak British English at school. So I guess growing up in Britain, you had that sort of influence from school. So, but if you look at how I sounded when I was a kid, I still remember my friends would like make fun out of me for sounding not as British as them. And I remember my vocabulary was slightly limited because I was speaking Tamil at home. And then I even remember my mum and dad had to teach me how to use a knife and fork because in the house we ate with our hands, right? We would eat dinner with our hands and lunch with our hands. And so there was that sort of interesting transition. So in terms of answering your question, it's a unique one. I guess it is just British accent in the beginning. But then my parents, they spoke with an Indian accent, right? And then I've been helping them with their accent. So in their case, it would be Indian accent first and then British. And if you listen to my mum and dad, I would love to bring them on a video actually, so you guys can actually hear their accent. I think that'd be really interesting. But yes, that's the answer to your question. Hope that kind of makes sense. If you want to clarify, please let me know. Just looking through the live stream comments. Muralidharan, I hope I pronounced your name correctly there. Muralidharan V says, hi Anpu, how to improve my vocabulary? I came across new words while I read, but I get confused on which dictionary to follow. Okay, good question. Guys, this is a question about vocabulary and dictionaries. I hope you don't mind me switching between the accents. This is, I guess, a Desi pronunciation video. So I'm going to explain this in the Indian accent for you. So when you use dictionary to understand the meaning of the word that you are reading, first of all, congratulations for actually wanting to improve your vocabulary. And also when we're reading, it's really important to understand the vocabulary. There's no point reading, going past it, right? And then not even understanding half the paragraph you have read. To answer your question specifically about which dictionary to use, I would personally use the Google dictionary. Google takes it from Merriam-Webster and Oxford and all of these different ones, but it chooses the best one on the top of the Google bar. So you just type in, so for example, you wanted to work out what the word dependent was. What does dependent mean? You type in dependent meaning into the top of the bar of the Google, and it comes up with the definition. Sometimes understanding that definition is difficult. So my advice is to look at least 4 or 5 different websites and understanding. So go through the first homepage. There will be lots of different links, right? So we've got Merriam-Webster or Cambridge or Oxford. So you look at all of them and we try to understand, okay, this is what this definition is, this is what this definition is, this is what this definition is. So we have lots of different definitions. You try to understand. Then step 2 is you look at synonyms. Synonyms. So synonyms means similar words, right? So similar words is a very useful understanding for the vocabulary, right? And third thing, we have to understand the word in a sentence. So you know what I do? I go into Google and type in dependent in a sentence. So you use the word in a sentence, and then Google gives you, or lots of different websites give you how to use the word in lots of different sentences so that you can catch the meaning quicker. In terms of me recommending a certain dictionary, I think I do not rely on one solely. I rely on at least 5 or 6 at the same time, concurrently. This helps me understand different nuances in the meaning so that I can use the word properly in my future sentences, right? And my top tip number 4 is please have a diary. Please have a diary. You have to write these words in a diary so that when you come back to it in like a month or 2, you know, okay, this is the meaning of this word, and it creates a bank of words for you to use and follow in the future. Noah, thank you for joining the live stream today. Jesus, that I'm pronouncing that in the British accent, but please let me know what language your mother tongue is. Jesus, is it Jesus? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly there. You say, hi, Amber, how are you today? I was wondering if I could use this live stream with my students who interact with English speakers from India so they can learn more about the Indian accent. Yes, I'd be more than happy for you to share this live stream with your students. That would actually make me really happy to spread the word about these live streams. We are doing this weekly, guys, for the next 4 weeks. I like to do different little series on my live stream. So this would be 4 weeks of content based on the Indian accent. I'm actually taking recommendations as well. If you go to my community feed on my YouTube and you can type in little ideas and suggestions there, you can also DM me on Instagram, which is at Anpu London. So I'm very active on Instagram. So please let me know if you have any suggestions for content. Like this series is going to be 4 videos, right? Which is happening every week on Wednesdays at 2:30 p.m. But I'm happy to make the series longer because at the end of the day, like it is just for you guys, right? So I'm going live. I want to teach you things that are relevant to you and your struggles and whatever you are struggling with. Like for example, Murali. Okay, one second. I do want to pronounce your name correctly. Muralidharan. You asked about vocabulary, so I want to maybe make some more videos about vocabulary learning, right? Maybe that could be really, really useful. But yes, cool. I'm really enjoying this live stream. I think I have to be honest. When I started these live streams up again in December, like hardly anyone commented, and I think it just felt like me talking to a camera screen. And I don't know. It's really nice when you guys ask questions, and it feels nice when I can interact with you guys if you're watching. Jesus, will do, Anbu. Thank you so much for your work. My mother tongue is Spanish. You pronounce my name very well. Muy bien. Gracias. I'm really glad that my pronunciation of your name was decent. All right, brilliant. Okay. So I want to finish off this live stream because we've been streaming for over half an hour. I would like to finish it off with, finishing it off with kind of like example sentences, giving you a chance to actually practice these out loud. Because like I said, guys, I know it feels a bit weird to say it out loud, especially like if we're no matter where. You might be listening to this on public transport at the classroom, so you might feel a little bit embarrassed. But if you are at home with no one else watching, or who cares, right? Just practice along anyway. So let me give you some example sentences. So there's lots of different top tips that we discussed within these within this sentence. So notice that we discussed robot, caught, and ball. So in the Indian accent, it will be, I noticed the robot caught the ball. I noticed the robot caught the ball. At the start of our live stream, we talked about how this word sounds similar to cot. So if we look at top tip number 1, do you see how here we talked about cots and courts? So if you just joined us for the live stream, I would recommend going back and watching it once we've ended this live stream. So in the Indian accent, this would be, in the Indian accent it would be, I noticed the robot caught the ball. How would you say this in a British accent? I'll give you 10 seconds to have a little think. I'm going to disappear so that you don't feel self-conscious. Ooh, SDF. Hi, thank you for joining the live stream and your recommendation. I completely agree. The two words that you've said on the live stream do sound the same. Mukhtar Ahmed, thank you for joining the live stream. So we're going to discuss SDF's words in a second. Okay, so in the British accent, this is I noticed the robot caught the ball. In a normal speed, this is I noticed the robot caught the ball. So geez, I'll say that one more time, but notice how I still do elongate the vowel sounds for caught, right? So I noticed the robot caught the ball. Caught the ball. So I'm saying the sentence quickly, but you see how I'm making the caught longer. I noticed the robot caught the ball. Okay, so we've got a couple of words from SDF. So SDF, I really hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I don't know if that's just a username, but we have world and wall. So SDF says that wall versus world, they sound similar. And do you know what? I completely agree. Actually, we could say it is the greatest. Do you know what? You're so right. In the Indian accent, if I wanted to read this one out, it would be, it is the greatest in the world. It is the greatest in the world. Right? It's a word. Word. And I do, yeah, we don't even pronounce the D sound, do we? So sometimes we do, world, world, but when speaking quickly, I do notice in the Indian accent it is pronounced word, right? So it is the greatest in the world. It is the greatest in the world. And I think when we're speaking quickly, like we don't even pronounce the D sound. So then wall, this one, right? Wall is also pronounced var, var. So it is the greatest in the var. Yeah, so Val and world. So wall, in the British accent would be wall, and then world, wall. So let me actually slow down a little bit so you can actually learn this. So in the British accent, this word here is wall, all, wall. This one is world, so it's a or, so wall, world, or, or, wall, world. In the Indian accent, it would be very similar, according to SDF, and I completely agree. World and world. It's the world and world. So it is the greatest in the world. Or I climbed the wall. Or world. I climbed the wall. Yeah, so I guess it wouldn't even be word, it would be wall, wouldn't it? So I climbed the wall. It is the greatest in the wall. Right? Do you hear that? I'll say that one more time. I climbed the wall. It is the greatest in the wall. Yeah, so again, there are lots of different types of accents in the Indian accent, but I completely understand why you're saying that. Guys, it's making me really happy to receive your comments on the live stream. It's so funny, as I was mentioning. I did my I did the live stream in December, and literally, I think I got I think I just got one viewer. But do you know what? I think to myself, hey, look, people can always reference it in the future, and even if it helps one person, then my time is worth it, right? So and I don't know. I just think I wasn't really expecting people to join today, so it's actually quite nice to receive your comments. Maida5 says hello from Thailand. Amazing. Thank you for joining from so far away. Q Star says hello, bye. What does bye actually mean? BHAI. Can you let me know? And then Muralidharan says, following my previous question, would you suggest learning the meaning of words as and when I come across them while reading books or downloading a set of GRE or TOEFL words and learning them one by one? Excellent question. Guys, we've got a question here. I'm going to read it out one more time. Following my previous question, would you suggest learning the meaning of words as and when? So as and when basically means as it comes up in books, right? Or do I actually like learn from a bunch of? I think both. You have to do both. You have to do both. So, you know how I said get a learning diary. I think we call that active learning, like being proactive and coming across words in books is very, very important. So as and when. But my personal opinion is 50-50. So 50% of time reading and active learning. And then we can also learn definitions from like a pack of words as well, highlighting the ones that we don't understand and then putting them in our diary as well. There's advantages for reading it in a book because then it teaches you context. But there's also advantages of learning just like a vocabulary list because it increases the speed and you can learn more in a short amount of time, right? So you're not having to wait for like a new word to come up. So bit of both. Bit of both is very, very important. Bhai means brother. Oh, I didn't know that in Hindi. Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Guys, do we have any final questions? I've got a bunch of whole new more top tips for our live stream next week on Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. London time. So today is the 24th of January. Next week it will be Wednesday the 31st of January. That will be part 2 to this series. I'm looking forward to teaching you some more top tips. And we're going to be going through word stress. So we're going to be going through intonation patterns in the Indian accent and the British accent. We're going to be talking about linking and blending. We're talking about consonant sounds. We're going to be talking about schwa sounds, pacing and rhythm. So there's a lot more that we need to discuss and go through. But before we end this live stream, I've really enjoyed it. Do we have any final questions? If not, I'm still just going to wait for a couple of minutes whilst you guys are having a think. I'm going to pop the words on the screen again for you to have a little practice. So we're going to go back to vowel sounds. Let's think about the differences in the vowel sounds in these sentences and words earlier. And in the meantime, I'm just going to monitor the comments. Okay, so final questions coming through. When is the next stream going to be? So it's going to be next week, Wednesday the 31st of January. And Jaden says, so why does pair and pair sound the same in British accent? Okay, let's go through this one as well. So we've got pair and pair. Okay, so I guess it would sound the same in the Indian accent too, wouldn't it? So pair, pair. So there's lots of different words in English which sound exactly the same. We call them homophones, but they have different meanings. So for example, like two and two. So yeah, I mean, I would have pronounced this the same in the Indian accent too. But I guess you would disagree with that. Why does pair and pair sound the same in the British accent? I'm not sure. I guess it's just there's lots of different homophones. Maybe we can do a little lesson on that in the future. All right. But good questions though, guys. All right. I think we should pause there. Suji says, can't wait for the next one. Thank you. I appreciate your excitement and enthusiasm. I am looking forward to the next one as well. Cool. If you do have any more questions, feel free to hold them for the next live stream. You can even sort of comment it in the comment section below once this live stream goes public for everyone to view and to rewatch and all of that good stuff. And cool, I will see you in the next live stream. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're watching in the world. I hope you have a good day or good rest of your day and keep practicing. Peace out.